Dari Komplek Balai Budaya Minomartani Ngaglik Sleman, inilah Radio BBM, Jaringan Radio Komunitas Yogyakarta.
Radio Komunitas Balai Budaya Minomartani. Radio Budaya, Radio Warga, Radio Kita
Hello,
Bersama.
Warga Budaya. Thank you for listening to BBM FM Community Radio, Yogyakarta.
Community Radio BBM FM, Creation for Nation.
Radio Komunitas BBM FM. Dukunglah budaya Indonesia.
Selamat sore Warga Budaya. Good afternoon, cultural citizens. My name is Melike and I'm your host for the program Global Chain, where we come together each Wednesday to discuss different cultural aspects from my experiences in Europe. As you might know or not, I'm an intern at Universitas Gadjah Mada in Yogyakarta, where I've now been for 5 weeks, leaving only 5 weeks behind or left actually. So yeah, time really flies, doesn't it? Well, so let's get to it. In today's broadcast, I'm talking with someone from Lampung in Sumatra, who last year moved to the Netherlands for her master's program in, you guessed it, intercultural communication. Well, you might recognize that I also study intercultural communication, and this is of course where I met her. And ever since meeting her, we've had some really interesting conversations on cultural experiences and differences. And when I then moved to Jogja and started this program, I knew I had to have her in, because now that I am here, I can finally also relate a bit to her experiences, and we could really have a fruitful conversation on culture. She's now doing her internship at Philips, a very important Dutch high-tech company, and she is doing that in Eindhoven, where I live back home and where my apartment is currently rented out. So that's really funny and a bit nostalgic. I had such a fun conversation with Klarissa. This is a recording I'll be sharing with you because obviously we have some time difference. And as she is working hard on her internship, I couldn't disturb her during work. But please welcome Klarissa. Hi Klarissa, welcome to the program. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Yeah, I'm good as well. Here it's 1 p.m, so I just had my lunch. And for you, it's still morning.
Yeah, it's 8 and I just wake up.
Yeah. Thank you for joining so early. It's
Thank
really appreciated.
thank you
Um,
for me.
Clarissa, please share a bit about yourself, where you're from, and what you're currently busy with.
Okay. So, hi, my name is Klarissa.
Hi,
And
Clarissa.
hi. I'm from Indonesia. I'm from Sumatra actually. I'm from Lampung, and I've been living there for quite a while, for
Mm-hmm.
until high school. And I moved to Jakarta because that's where the economy goes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So I moved there to have my degree, the bachelor degree, and then I worked there. And then I was thinking while I work, maybe it would be fun to change my life over.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
What to do? I don't have motivation. I just work, but every day I wake up, but nothing really, it's not interesting anymore. And I was thinking maybe I should, study my master degree,
Mm-hmm.
and then I get a scholarship, and then yeah, and then I study my master in the Netherlands.
Yeah.
And I study intercultural communication.
Indeed. That's where I know you're from.
Yeah, because I have trouble actually. I think it will be interesting because I came from a very multicultural family.
Mm-hmm.
Indonesia itself is very multicultural. My mom is from Sundanese, and my dad is from Lampung, and then my uncle is from Switzerland. So it's like
Okay.
sometimes each of the family meeting I have to switch myself. I feel like, Sundanese, they're very soft, and my dad, the way we talk, it's very loud. So it's like I have I have to switch myself around, and
Yeah.
I think also when I was working, I met clients from diverse backgrounds. So from there I thought maybe intercultural communication will actually help me to understand this
Yeah.
situation.
Definitely. And has it helped you to understand?
A little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I think the main takeaway I get from this program is actually because I always think about cultural differences.
Mm-hmm.
And after this program, I think about, okay, we're actually the same. And when you talk with people from different culture, it would be great if you also focus on similarities so we could connect instead of just like, okay, you're from there. The way I will talk to you is like that, so it's stereotypical, But I thought it helps, but it turns out it's not really a good idea to do that when you talk to people. Yeah, so
Yeah.
that's the way. Been
Yeah, I
great.
totally recognize that. Yeah, I also actually a couple of weeks ago I shared a seminar with some students in applied English in their cross-cultural class, and I also shared about how in our program in intercultural communication we've had this focus on small culture, so not looking at national cultures, but
Yeah.
also looking at generation and gender and interests and so many other things. And it's so interesting that you're saying exactly the same thing because that was also like my main takeaway from our program is how do I approach culture and why am I looking for differences instead of similarities? That's
Yeah.
actually very interesting.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
Okay.
that's also hard to do it at first because like I'm a fan of like I don't know boxing people.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh,
That's the way we do.
unfortunately, me too. I think it's very natural.
Yeah.
So
And after
natural.
the program, I try to reflect and stop myself from doing that, and I said like,
Yeah.
no, you cannot do that anymore. Yeah.
No. No, it's true. It's true. I sometimes just secretly in my mind do it, but then I tell myself, well, if I'm aware that I'm doing it, I also know it's wrong. So then
Yeah.
maybe that helps.
Yeah.
No, I totally recognize. So you
Yeah.
worked in Jakarta and you said, well, you lost a bit motivation and you decided you needed to do something else. You wanted to do your master. And why did you decide to do your master's abroad?
Because I think that's one in a lifetime, and it's going to change the way you see things.
Yeah.
And my mom's dream since she was little is actually for all of her family and children to be everywhere except for Indonesia,
Okay.
because I think she recognized how important it is to actually go abroad and see people and just, you know, because when you meet with a lot of different people, and when you are headstrong like me, for example, you will see that your way is not the only way.
Yeah, yes, that's so true.
There are many ways to see things. And yes, Indonesia is also multicultural, but when you go abroad, the way they live is different, so you need to adapt and you become more flexible. And when you become more flexible, you survive more in any, anything can be thrown at you, and you will adapt quite easily. Yeah. I think that's the purpose.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So to experience other cultures,
Yeah.
to also self-reflect, right? So when you meet other
Yeah.
cultures, we always self-reflect, and then is it a dream of your mom that you'll stay abroad, or that you'll eventually travel or come back home?
My mom will always just leave it to me.
Yeah.
But then I think deep in her heart, she want me to just, travel around the world. Not exactly in the Netherlands, but just like go outside there while I'm young, and then maybe come back when I'm, I don't know, 50 or 40, where I cannot. Yeah.
Okay, interesting. I think if my mom could choose, she would want me back. She's like, good for you, really happy for you. You've experienced the world, and now
Come back.
come back. Yeah, definitely. That's funny. I like your mom's approach. And you said, well, not necessarily the Netherlands, and I'm curious why you ended up choosing the Netherlands. Was that because of the study, or the country, or a complete coincidence?
So when I was looking for the program, I was actually really like this Hofstede thing, which is controversial that I know now.
Yeah.
The Hofstede
cultural
theory.
dimensions.
Yeah, I really like that. And the only program that I found in intercultural communications is either UK or Netherlands or Finland. I found.
Okay.
Yeah, it's very unique program, and this program is very unique because like they have many language programs. Not I think it's the only program that have that. And also like internship opportunity where you can actually practice your intercultural. Intercultural is very broad and complex concept. It's very abstract. So if you don't get a chance to actually practice it in a real world setting, then I don't think, it will be hard to make sense.
Yeah.
So I choose this program, and I thought, okay, it's great. And also, actually, my grandma speaks a little bit Dutch.
Oh.
Yeah, and she was really excited when I said, maybe I'm going to the Netherlands. And my grandma was like, yeah, you should speak Dutch. Let me teach you. I was like,
and she know it because of the history, I guess.
Yeah,
of
yeah.
the Dutch settlers here in Indonesia. Okay.
Yeah.
Did you speak a bit of Dutch before you traveled to the Netherlands?
No, but no, but there are many similarities with Indonesian. So I didn't know if it is like, I didn't know that it's Dutch, but it's actually sometimes I understand because I recognize it because some of the words are actually come from Dutch.
Okay.
So yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And how is it now? You've been in the Netherlands for a bit less than a year?
Yeah, almost 1 year.
Okay. And so besides the Dutch language, I'm very curious to hear sort of your Dutch expectations, or your expectations to the Netherlands before you moved, and how that has either sort of come true, so your expectations sort of being met, or whether your experiences have been very different from what you expected of the Netherlands.
I think the most cultural shock, maybe like my expectation will be I could speak English whenever I want, because I heard Netherlands is the only country where people is actually it's okay to speak English.
Yeah.
But when I come to the Netherlands, it's actually like I heard a lot of Dutch, and my friends in the classroom when they are Dutch, they're speaking Dutch as well, and in my office they're also speaking Dutch. I mean, it also makes sense when you meet like for example like Indonesian as well. You speak Indonesian with them; it's just come naturally, easier.
Yeah.
But then I didn't expect that. I thought that it
No.
would be like all English.
Yeah. Yeah. Interesting.
But no, they
No.
and I feel kind of guilty because I should have learned it. My grandma was right, you know.
Grandma's always right.
Grandma's always right. I should have learned it before, but then yeah, it's just like I'm very guilty that I didn't learn the language before, and that's the only expectation that I have. Because in Indonesia, if you don't really, I don't know if you noticed that, but you don't really need to learn the language because we have many local languages as well. And you don't really need to learn the exact language. You just need to sound like them, and they already consider you as one of them. Like for example, the way they talk, like the intonation. You just need to speak in English or in Indonesian with that intonation, and they will be like, "Oh, you speak our language now."
Yeah, but you do. So everyone speaks. I mean, I don't experience a lot of English. I don't experience a lot of English here. So I am trying a bit to pick up some Bahasa Indonesia just to get around. I was in Bali last week. And there is more English, I guess, because of the tourism. But here in Yogyakarta, where my internship is, I don't get around a lot with English. So I'm always really curious when I've heard this more. I've heard a lot of people say, well, I moved to the Netherlands because I've heard that you can just speak English. And it's very interesting because, so I'm from Denmark and I'm not sure if that is the reason why I didn't have this expectation or if there's something else. But I had the exact opposite. I was really surprised that everyone spoke English so well in the Netherlands.
Really?
Because I think in Denmark, we think we speak English very well. But I think the Dutch beat us because what I've noticed is that also the older generation speaks it. They might not want to speak it with each other. And that to me makes a lot of sense. I think most people in their own country will naturally speak their own language. But I'm always surprised when I meet 60, 70 plus year plus people that speak English, and I think, that's impressive. I like young people I expect, but the older generation I didn't expect. But so I'm very curious, where do you think you had that expectation from? That in the Netherlands English would be sufficient?
Because I know that in Europe, each of the country they really love their language. There's this idea of in Europe, language multiculturalism is very apparent. You know, if you go to Portugal, it would be best if you talk in Portuguese. If you go to French, they don't want to talk English; they just want to talk French.
Even if they do speak English.
Even if they do speak English. You know, when you come to the Germany, it's best if you talk in German. But in the Netherlands, and there are a lot of Indonesian diaspora here, and a lot of people here, they say that it's okay if you don't speak Dutch because you can easily get around with English. It wasn't like that before in the old times, but then I think the Netherlands wanted to grab some, you know, some talents and everything, so they started to be okay with speaking English, and I know that. So when I come, I thought that I can get around with English. I can get around with English. Only when in like academic settings or professional settings, when you meet them every day and there are a lot of Dutch, then they speak Dutch, which is understandable because, you know, why would you speak English with the Dutch person?
Yeah, exactly. That makes sense.
Yeah, but then I feel like I also feel like a little bit left out a little because then when they're speaking when they're speaking Dutch, especially when they're speaking very fast, like I don't understand a thing, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah, but that becomes my motivation to actually, I have to learn Dutch.
Yeah, it's really similar to my motivation. It's really interesting what you're saying. And I also did my thesis. I think we discussed about this as well. I did my thesis on multilingualism in the workplace. So speaking English and Dutch in an office. And what I also found there, and what I also experienced myself, because I've been living now in the Netherlands for 5 years, is I can get around with only English. You can get around practically.
Yeah.
So you can get everything done in a practical sense, but socially you are left out, in my experience as well. So both in the office, but also, so my husband is Dutch with his family. If I want, I can understand all the practical things, but as soon as we go into jokes or a certain emotional layer, or that level, then speaking the language really, I think, helps a lot. And I think it's so often also because language and culture are so much tied together. And that's of course also what I experience here in Jogja, right? So the expressions that people have, they tie well with the culture, they go together.
Yeah.
So yeah. Okay. Interesting.
Yeah, but it's also interesting because I think in Europe they want you, like, because Bariki is our friend.
Yeah.
I don't know how to explain this, but Bariki also did the multicultural thing with his thesis, and he actually sat down a couple of people from who speak different languages, and they understand each other, and then they reply with their own language.
Yeah.
So I think it is interesting because in Indonesia, like, the way I see it is just that we have many local languages, but we don't have to speak the full sentence or like speak the whole language. We can speak a little bit and sound like them, pronounce it like them, and they're already like, oh, you can speak a language.
Yeah. Okay.
So it's not like a sentence, but it's like only a little, and that's why I recognize.
Yeah, that is a bit lacking, I guess, in Europe, because it's very much one nation, one language. Yeah, no, that's very interesting. And what you mean with Bariki's research, so Bariki, for our listeners, is our fellow student from intercultural communication. And what he did in his research was that he practiced lingua receptiva, which is everyone speaks their own language, but because all the participants have an understanding of each other's language, then they don't need to switch. No one needs to switch to another language. Everyone stays in their own, and everyone understands each other. Which is very interesting. No, it's true.
Yeah.
And speaking a bit more of cultural shocks. So cultural shocks seem always so dramatic, and it's really pointing out differences and not similarities. But nevertheless, it's always a very funny topic. So I'm very curious to hear some of your cultural shocks in the Netherlands or in Europe in general. Please do spill the beans.
I think, I don't know. Okay, at first, like recently, maybe the one that I really remember is yesterday. My boss, she's Dutch, and she hates questions. So whenever whenever I send email, I didn't like say like please review or please do so or please do this. I always ask them in a form of question, like, for example, would you maybe perhaps please do this?
Okay.
But I cannot like be a little bit more, I don't know, directly commenting, because who I command is actually the managers, the product managers, and they're very high in position. So I feel like I'm just an intern. How can I do that? But then she was like, yeah, but they don't have to. They don't have time for questions. If you ask them in a form of questions, they can say yes or no. But if you command them like directly, like please review, they cannot say no. They will do it.
They will do it.
So I
This
was like,
is
oh,
such an interesting one.
yeah, because I think from my language it will be like in a form of question as well, and it will be more like indirect kind of approach.
Yeah.
And here in a workplace, she was like, "No, you have to be more bold. You have to commit. You got the power. You
You
go
got
for
the
it."
power. And how do you find that? Have you tried so far to do it?
Yeah, like so last time I wanted to leave early, and I said to her like, "Can I leave? Can I please leave early today?" And then I immediately remember and I switch back and I say to her like, "I'm going to leave early today because I need to do my thesis." She was
Yeah.
like, "Yes, I like that."
Oh, so funny. It's so interesting that you bring this one up because it's definitely something that I'm noticing here in Indonesia, that being humble is a huge part of the culture, right? So being humble is about showing respect. And I
Yeah.
actually just talked about this with my husband the other day, that I said it's so interesting because if humble is always translated into respect, I think there is no problem. But what's interesting is that if you take humbleness into the Netherlands, in my experience, is that humbleness is translated into weakness sometimes, or
Oh.
translated into hesitant, or like not really knowing or hesitating. And then I think it becomes a bit of exactly as your boss says, well, just demand it, just do it, just be assertive, you got the power. And I really thought, oh, that cannot be easy if you're so brought up with humble is about showing respect. And I experienced it the other way here, that I really need to actively tell myself to ask, even though I think I know, like I don't,
Yeah, you
it
know
does
what
not,
you
it
want.
doesn't come natural to me to ask for things as much as maybe it does for you. I would just be like, hey, I'm leaving early. But I'm very much telling myself like, just ask it, because you're gonna get a yes. Just ask it. Just be a bit extra humble, because yeah, I don't want to come across as rude. I think that's the other thing. So being assertive in the
Yeah.
Dutch sense might come across as rude, and that's the thing about
Yeah. Yeah.
traveling and how it translates into.
That is true. That is true. And I actually, that's funny because I spoke with one of our classmates from Japan, Asu,
Yeah.
and she also agreed with me. I think it's I don't know if it is Asian culture thing or just like, because we cannot. I don't know. It's so hard for us to do that because like I don't want to
Yeah.
be rude, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's funny. Yeah, that's the
It's
most.
very interesting. I can definitely imagine. No, really, definitely. Also, because so back home in the Netherlands, I'm in recruitment. And also there, we recruit a lot of people from abroad. And we also see a tendency of, from a bit more the Asian cultures, to have this humbleness. And we also sometimes need to say, well, that is not because there is wrong or right, but if the manager is Dutch, then your humbleness might come across as you being hesitating or not being assertive. And that's just so interesting that now that I am here, it's really my first experience immersing myself into Asian culture. And it is not hesitating, it is not weakness, it is just respect, how I see it. It's just how it's translated.
I think so. It's so culture shock for me, that one, because like imagine.
No, yeah, I can imagine. And are there any things, I'm also curious to hear, so obviously the assertiveness versus humble, and it's something that you need to be in a country for a while to understand, I think. Is there certain things that you remember from back when you first moved, either appearance, it can even be clothing or style or anything like that, that was a bit shocking to you or a bit new to you?
Walking, because
Walking.
in Indonesia we always drive car. You can just
Yes.
100 meters and we will take grab bike or go bike.
Yes.
We will take ojek. We will take
Gojek is a thing.
vehicle. I don't know, motorcycle or car. But right here, like you walk around and it's no problem because most of the street are actually for pedestrian and for bike. So you feel safe. But in Indonesia, you actually like you can go. It's easier for you to go by car or motorbike. If you're maybe also because of the weather, it's so hot there. So it's easier if you just go by vehicle. But for me, the most culture shock is that everyone is walking around or bike everywhere.
It's so true. It's so true. I remember walking with you. Yeah. I remember walking with you from one of our lectures together, and then we were going to this Young Innovator program.
Yeah.
And I actually remember talking about this with you. It was winter, and you're like, "We have been walking forever," and I was like, "It's just 20 minutes." I remember this.
I thought, we could have taken the bus. And you're like, no, just walk.
I was really enjoying the walk. I was like, we need some fresh air. We need to be stimulated. Our bodies need to move.
I was like, yeah. That's also a culture shock. The first time I come here, like everyone is walking. And the train is so great. I mean, they're so in schedule.
Mm-hmm.
Like, the first months I come here, I'm always running around because I thought if the train leaves at 9, you can just get away. Like you can just arrive at 9 sharp.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But then you actually have to get there like at 8:50 or at 59 or something like that. It's very point. Like very.
Like it even leaves early. I always say that the Dutch schedule is so unscheduled that it leaves 2 minutes early.
Yeah, I think so. So the first time I come here, because I always take train, I always running around because I always I miss the train.
Yeah.
But it's also a culture shock for me and my friends.
Yeah, no, same. I recognize that. I'm happy that you think that the trains are so on time because I think when you moved to the Netherlands, it was during the strike, wasn't it? I remember that summer it was the trains were all striking. So I'm happy you still have it's amazing that the positive has been prevailing the negative.
Yeah, but they're a little bit extreme. So they either cancel the train, or they're on schedule, or they delay it. But it's rarely happen, and you can see it in the app. So you know what is going to happen. So at least,
that's true. That's true. And just to also discuss a little bit what's next, I'm curious because you've been in the Netherlands for a year. We've been obviously studying together in Utrecht, and now you're doing your internship in Eindhoven, where I live. Where my apartment is currently rented out. So that's really funny. And you work at Philips, which is Dutch pride. So that's really also interesting to me that you're there.
Yeah.
And how do you look at what's next? What's after internship? How do you look at possibly moving back to Indonesia or to another country?
Yeah, I think I'm going to be back in Indonesia for a while. So just because I get here from a scholarship, so I need to be back and just contribute to the society and so on because I use their money.
Yeah, that's such a beautiful way of looking at it. Okay.
I have to be back.
Yeah.
I will be back to Indonesia for a couple of years, I guess, and then if I could, I can go back to Europe again to look for a job. That's the way I see it.
Okay.
Yeah, because and my brother said actually, when you come to Indonesia, you will be a very different person, different personality, because I kind of guess it that you would. But then, I'm very interesting how different I am. Going to meet my friends and meeting my friends and, asking their opinion. Am I different now?
Yeah, indeed. And how do you feel about that, going back and meeting everyone again?
It's actually pretty sad because I spent a lot of time to adapt, and then when I'm finally reached that, okay, I'm getting used to this, and then I have to go back, and then I have to switch back again. I have to adapt again. So it's kind of it's a bit yeah. But yeah, life. That's
Yeah.
life.
And what do you think you've adapted to the most? Like, what has been the hardest to adapt to, or like, what is the biggest change you've realized with yourself that you've sort of, yeah, adapted into?
In the Netherlands or
Yeah, in the Netherlands, because you said you would have to adapt back, and it has taken you
yeah,
some time to adapt to the Netherlands. So I'm curious to
yeah.
hear what that is.
Like the walking part, the public
Yeah.
transport will be, because in Netherlands are very small country.
Mm.
You can get by like within 2 or 3 hours, especially if you live in Utrecht, which is in the center of the country. So yeah, I think that's going what I miss, because in Indonesia, if you want to travel everywhere, you need to, take planes or cars or something like that.
Yeah.
I think if I go back to Indonesia, it will be like, oh, okay, I cannot get by to another city by train anymore. That's sad.
Yeah. Yeah, I can imagine.
Yeah,
And
and also,
also, sorry,
Mhm.
sorry, go.
Yeah, and also maybe like the way I communicate will be a little bit different.
Mm.
Maybe I will be more, I don't know, assertive and direct, since like I'm getting used to this now.
You're gonna be the rude one now.
Yeah, I'm going to be the rude one. Oh. Yeah, but yeah, I think, yeah, personality wise, I think I'm going to change a little bit. Maybe the way I see things as well.
Yeah. No, I
Yeah.
recognize that. I recognize that. So, the first time I traveled abroad, I was 19, and I went to South Africa for 3 months. And 3 months isn't very long, but when you're
Yeah.
19, already a lot changes for you, right? You're already
True.
in a place where you change all the time. And I remember when I came back, I think my biggest struggle was that I felt like everyone had stayed the same, and I had changed so much, and I had seen so much, and I had met so many new people and new cultures, that I was very much like, oh, but you've been standing still here.
Yeah.
And that sounds very harsh to say maybe, but it was really my experience that it took me just as long to adapt back into Denmark as it had adapting to South Africa. And that's really like this post traveling thing, right? To adapt back. And it's also, so I've been in the Netherlands for 5 years, and a lot of people ask me how I would feel about moving back to Denmark. And obviously there are a lot of good things about moving back and seeing the people you love, and all these things. But what I realize is it can also scare me to think of the roles, or your role back with your family and with your friends, that obviously they have moved on a little bit without you, and you've moved on a little bit without them in a way. So I'm curious to hear as well if you recognize that a bit with yourself.
Yeah, and a lot of my friends are actually, it's funny that you mentioned that, and then I remember a lot of my friends are actually getting married.
Oh,
They're married. Most of them are married now, so I will be left out. When I come to Indonesia, they will come with their little babies. I'm like,
wow.
I didn't know before.
Wow, that's a change.
That's a change, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, everyone is getting married, and but I think once I get the taste of Indonesian food, once I come back, I will be like,
Fair.
I know, I recognize this.
Yes. And what do you miss the most about Indonesian food?
Oh, the spiciness of Indonesian food, because Sumatra food are very like spicy.
Yeah.
But I think if you live in Jogja, it's very sweet as well.
Well,
But
I find it spicy.
really.
I find every time I have lunch, I'm noticing that I'm the only one who needs to blow my nose like for 5 more minutes, because it is so spicy, and my colleagues are not making a single sound, and I'm like, I'm sorry, I'm adapting. So, but yes, there are also a lot of sweets. The tea is very sweet, and I need to ask for no sugar. The juices are very sweet, but I find the food itself, that's quite spicy. But I like it, but I definitely look like someone who's suffering, and I'm sweating, and
Oh, really? That's interesting. Yeah, that's the only thing I like. I will be I will be happy to get back the spice, the food, the taste in the food.
Yeah.
You know.
No, I totally recognize that.
Yeah. Because Indonesian food are very strong in terms of the taste. You know, it's like the salt, you can feel it. You know, if it is like sour, you can feel the sour.
Yeah.
If it's spicy, you definitely can feel it's spicy. You know, so it's like
it's true. It's true. And I remember it's quite a while back now. Maybe it's more than 6 months ago that you gave me this instant noodle package. I didn't even know yet that I was going to Indonesia for my internship. And I remember you had brought these. Did you bring them from Indonesia? Did you find an Indonesian store?
I brought them from Indonesia.
So you brought instant noodles from Indonesia, and I remember you gave me one of them. And that one was even spicy to me. I was like,
really? No, it's a chicken soup.
It's really interesting because we did a broadcast last week on Indonesian snacks, and I asked people what they would bring with them if they would go abroad of snacks, and then I thought of you because I thought instant noodles is what Klarissa brings with her when she goes abroad from Indonesia. But I'm curious to hear if there's something else that you have been surprised to miss.
Yeah, I think instant noodle is like way to go because you can actually the powder you can mix it. We can mix it with any food in the Netherlands and it will taste good.
So you take the spice from the instant noodle package.
Yeah, and
then you use it.
And use it in pasta, in soup, in everything, and it will taste good.
That's very smart. That's a good trick. It's a very good trick for anyone moving from Indonesia to the Netherlands. If you miss spice, you bring instant noodles with you, and you take out the spice and you put it in whatever you want.
Yeah, exactly.
That's a good one. That's a good one.
Yeah, we need like MSG.
Yeah, it's such a good one. Okay, I'm also curious. I'm already making a list of what I want to bring with me, mostly for friends and colleagues and family, of what I think they need to taste and what I can pack. Of course, there are a lot of amazing things that I cannot pack. So I have to be smart.
Instant noodle is way to go. We heard that our instant noodle is actually the most delicious thing, I think. Delicious instant noodle, if I'm not mistaken. I don't know, because I read it in Indonesian media. Of course, maybe they're biased.
Yeah, they may be a bit biased.
But we heard that it's the best. Definitely bring it.
That's a good one. That's like my dad. My dad is very convinced that actually pizza is Turkish, while the rest of the world. So it's a bit the same biased situation. I'm not saying that the best instant aren't from Indonesia, but I'm just saying, know your sources. I'm super enjoying this conversation, Klarissa, but I see that I'm getting a reminder that I have to let you go, and that is because you're an intern at Philips, the Dutch pride, and they keep you busy. And they keep you direct and assertive. So I promise to let you go before work hours. Is there anything else you want to share with us?
Well, I don't know. I think there are many Indonesian in the Netherlands, and if there are Indonesian who are thinking about moving to the Netherlands, I think they will enjoy it. You'll find it funny.
Yeah.
I'll definitely go for it if you want. I'm scared that I'm scared people off, but no, people are really nice here. Like, they're very welcoming, and there are many Indonesian community everywhere. So not only in the Netherlands, but in other countries as well. So if you're thinking to, I don't know, study abroad or work abroad, go for it, I think. And also for foreigners. Also for foreigners, if you come to Indonesia, it will be a nice country to experience, I think.
Definitely. People are extremely welcoming. I feel like I can confirm that. Very welcoming, very nice.
Yeah.
It's very, very respectful. Yeah, amazing food. Food.
Yeah, and yeah,
Yes,
that's all from me.
definitely. Okay. Thanks a lot, Klarissa, and good luck on your work day because you're just starting up.
Yeah, you too.
Okay.
Good luck. To you.
Thank you. Speak to you. Bye
Thank you.
bye.
Terima kasih Warga Budaya for listening and for being curious. I hope you enjoyed the broadcast as much as I enjoyed having this conversation with Klarissa, because as you can hear, we had a lot of fun. It's always great fun if you can discuss cultural differences and similarities in such a fun, but of course, obviously a respectful way. We've talked about a lot of things, and I just want to summarize some of the main takeaways that I took from this conversation with Klarissa, and I've tried to boil it down to 3 takeaways. First, Klarissa says, well, that she learned from the study program to look for similarities instead of differences. And I know we joke a lot about differences in this broadcast, but I find it a very beautiful takeaway. It's definitely mine as well from the study program intercultural communication. Look for similarities and cherish similarities more than differences. And then Klarissa also says that she went abroad to also learn that your way is not the only way. She says about herself that she's headstrong. It's a healthy experience for her to go abroad and realize that your way is not the only way. It's definitely something I resonate with. I'm a rather headstrong, a semi stubborn person myself, so it's a very good one to keep in mind. And last but not least, and maybe the most important in the entire broadcast, is that Indonesia has the best instant noodles in the world, according to an Indonesian source. So it has to be true. It has to be true, obviously. Go get them if you go abroad and you're Indonesian. Don't forget to put them in your suitcase. It will save you. You can use the spice for any dish that you find tasteless. It's a great tip. That's it for today's broadcast. I've super enjoyed sharing this conversation with you. I apologize for any misperceptions or misrepresentations that might have occurred during the broadcast. For the rest, have a great night, Warga Budaya, dan sampai jumpa di siaran berikutnya. Bye-bye.
Terima kasih. Anda sedang mendengarkan Radio Komunitas BBM FM 107,7 MHz.
Dipancarkan dari kawasan Balai Budaya Minomartani, Radio Komunitas BBM.